In the kingdom of Aldermere, magic was completely forbidden. Not regulated, not discouraged. Forbidden. 3 centuries ago, before the Great Cleansing, witches were not feared as monsters. They were hunted as weapons. A single spell cast in the right moment could collapse a treasury, unravel a treaty, or twist a king's decree into ash before the ink dried. It was silent. That was what made it unstoppable. No army could guard against a whisper. No sword could carry a thought. So the crown ended it, not through negotiation, not through compromise, through fire. Magic was outlawed. Witches were rooted out. Those accused of spellcraft were dragged to the pyres in the town square.
Public.
Unforgiving. Final. The Hunter Corps was formed to enforce this law. Elite soldiers trained to detect, track, and eliminate magic users without mercy, without hesitation, without regret. They wore black armor that did not reflect light. They moved through the kingdom like shadows with purpose. And when they found you, you were not given a trial. You were not given a chance. You were given wood, rope, and flame. That was the law. That was always the law. And today, the law had decided I was one of them. I didn't do it on purpose. That was what I wanted to scream. But the words died somewhere between my chest and my throat, crushed by the weight of the rope around my wrists. Coarse fibers bit into skin that had already gone raw from struggling. My shoulders ached, wrenched behind my back at an angle that made every breath a negotiation. My ankles were bound to the stake with iron chains, cold metal pressing through my worn boots. The wood was stacked to my knees. Fresh kindling. Dry pine. It would catch fast. The executioner stood to my left, his torch already lit. The flame licked at the air like it was hungry. The crowd pressed in close, faces twisted with that particular mix of fear and satisfaction that only comes when people believe they are watching justice. I had seen it before. Everyone had. The pyres were public entertainment. A reminder. A lesson. She destroyed my bakery. The voice boomed across the square, and the crowd parted slightly to let the speaker through. The baker. A round man with flour still dusted across his tunic and rage-burning crimson in his cheeks. He pointed a thick finger at me, like I was already ash. She walked in this morning. I told her to leave. She looked at me, she looked at my oven, and it exploded.
Brick. Fire. Dough.
Everywhere. That's witchcraft. That's illegal. That's death. The crowd roared. Not words. Just noise. The kind of noise that doesn't need meaning to be terrifying. A woman near the front clutched her child closer. A young man spat on the ground. Someone threw a rotten apple that struck my shoulder and fell into the kindling. I barely felt it. My pulse was hammering too loud to register anything else. I hadn't meant to. That was the horrible, useless, devastating truth. I had only wanted bread. 1 loaf. I had been hungry for 3 days. The bakery smelled like warmth and life, and everything I didn't have. When the baker shouted at me to leave, when he shoved me toward the door with his floury hand, something inside me had flinched. Not my body. Something deeper. Something I had spent 22 years pretending didn't exist. The oven had not just cracked. It had detonated. Brick and mortar and burning dough raining down like a curse. A shard of stone had missed the baker's head by inches. He had stumbled backward, wild-eyed, and screamed the one word that ends everything.
Witch.
The Hunter Corps arrived within the hour. They didn't ask questions. They didn't need to. The evidence was smoking in the street. I was dragged from the wreckage, bound with enchanted rope that hummed faintly against my skin, and paraded through the city toward the square. People stopped to watch. Some jeered. Some just stared with hollow expressions that said they had seen this before and would see it again. And now I was here.
Bound.
Displayed. A spectacle. The executioner stepped forward. His armor was black, seamless. A helmet concealed his face entirely, and that was somehow worse than seeing it. He wasn't a person. He was a function. He raised the torch, and the crowd's roar became a single, pulsing chant. Burn, burn, burn. My chest heaved. My vision blurred at the edges. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't form because some part of me, some quiet, buried, honest part, knew that the accusation wasn't entirely false. The oven had exploded because of me. It always happened because of me. The candles that flickered wildly when I walked past. The whispers I heard in empty rooms, voices that shouldn't have existed. The way people sometimes forgot what they were saying when I looked at them too long, blinking slowly, like they were waking from a dream. Small things. Dismissible things. Easy to explain away.
Until today.
I closed my eyes. The heat of the torch was close enough to feel now, a warm breath against my cheek. Someone in the crowd screamed with excitement. A child was crying. The executioner's arm tensed for the throw. This was it. This was actually it. Then he stopped. I felt it before I saw it. A shift. Not in the crowd. In the air itself. A sudden stillness. The kind that doesn't happen naturally. The kind that is made. The executioner's arm, raised to throw, locked mid-motion. He didn't lower it. He didn't turn. He just stopped, like a mechanism that had lost its gear. The chanting faltered. Heads turned. Even the baker, red-faced and triumphant, stepped back. His expression crumpled from victory into confusion, then into something closer to fear. Heavy boots on stone.
Slow.
Deliberate. Unhurried. The crowd parted without being told to. Guards straightened their posture, hands twitching toward their weapons. A noble woman pressed a handkerchief to her mouth. The silence that fell over the square was not respectful. It was terrified. I turned my head as far as the ropes would allow, and I saw him. He wore the same black armor as the executioner, but his bore no helmet. His face was sharp, too sharp, the kind of sharp that didn't soften with age or kindness. Dark hair swept back from a high forehead, darker eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. A scar traced the edge of his jaw, thin and pale, barely visible against his skin. The emblem on his chest was different from the others. Larger. More intricate. Not just a hunter. The hunter. Kael Varenth. Commander of the Hunter Corps. The Witchbreaker. The man who had executed more magic users than anyone in Aldermere's history. The name mothers whispered to frighten children into obedience. He didn't look at the crowd. He didn't look at the baker. He didn't look at the pyre. He looked at me. And something in his expression wasn't what I expected. Not hatred. Not righteous fury. Not the cold satisfaction of a zealot about to watch another witch burn. Something else. Something assessing. Something that almost looked like interest. He stopped at the base of the platform. The executioner still hadn't moved. The torch trembled now, just barely, the flame flickering as if caught in a wind that wasn't there.
Kael's gaze held mine.
Unblinking. Unreadable. Then he spoke. She's not to be executed. The words landed like a blade dropped onto stone. The crowd erupted. Shouts of confusion. Indignation. The baker's voice rose above the rest, high and desperate and furious. Your commandership. She destroyed my bakery. She's a witch. The law demands. Kael didn't look at him. I know what the law demands. Then why? Because I am the law. The baker's mouth snapped shut. The crowd's noise dimmed like a snuffed candle. Kael Varenth stepped onto the platform. The wood creaked under his weight, the sound carrying through the silence. He walked past the executioner without glancing at him and stopped directly in front of me. Close. Too close. I could smell leather and smoke and something colder beneath them both, something metallic, like winter air before a storm. He looked down at me, and for the first time, I saw his expression shift. Not a smile. Not exactly. Something sharper. Something that knew more than it was saying. You're going to work for me, he said quietly. His voice didn't carry to the crowd. This was for me alone. But first, we're getting married. My breath stopped. Married. The word didn't fit. It didn't make any sense. This man, this monster, this executioner, this shadow who haunted every witch's nightmares, was standing over my bound